All right, y'all, there's a ton of different updates about Tesla and FSD right now that we're going to go over in this video. And we've been talking about FSD 14 and even hardware 5, the upgraded computer and cameras that are coming to cars, but more and more information is coming out about all of these things. So let's start with FSD version 14, because we've been waiting a long time for this. And for most of the year, Elon has been hinting at the FSD version 14 update coming sometime by the end of the year, but the predictions have gotten closer and closer, and the timeline hasn't really moved, and it's looking like by the end of September is probably going to happen. And yeah, that's within just a couple of weeks. Now, when Tesla starts their FSD update rollouts, especially when it's a big change like going up to version 14, they usually do it in a certain way. Of course, this is just in general, things always can change, but generally they first roll it out to mostly the FSD team. That makes perfect sense. They're the guys working on it. They can then test it out, fix any bugs before it goes out to anyone else. Tesla then has multiple stages of rollouts within the company. And so this can go to a few employees or a lot of employees and expand from there to eventually going to any employee that owns a Tesla with full self-driving. They then can receive this update, and eventually FSD eventually just rolls out to everyone in the company. And after that is when we will start to see the first public rollouts. Now, usually, of course, there's the early access testers such as myself who get the update and then it rolls out to other people. But again, this is in general. There have been times in the past where FSD updates have rolled out to people other than me first, and then I receive the update later than them. Now, the important part of talking about this is FSD version 14 has started rolling out to employees. And this is not the initial tiny little rollout. It sounds like a lot of employees at Tesla are getting FSD version 14. And that usually means we are not far off from the first initial public release. Now, who's going to get it, how fast it's going to roll out, all of those things we don't know for sure. But the fact that FSD is rolling out to a larger number of employees is really encouraging news, showing we are close to FSD coming out to the public. We'll get to see our first glimpses of it really soon, I'm thinking. This goes along with the fact that Elon has been predicting by the end of September for many, many months now, and that timeline has not changed. So this is really exciting news. On top of that, while we're talking about FSD, what do you think of this camera angle? I'm kind of getting ready to make some new videos here, so let me know what you think. I really like this wide angle view. I think we have to continue seeing the steering wheel and the screen in the videos, especially people first time seeing FSD videos. But anyway, let me know what you think of this camera angle, just trying out some different stuff. Now, the next few things I'm going to tell you are just mostly rumors, so take them with a grain of salt, but you know, they're pretty good, and it's fun to speculate on these things. So it looks like the current version of FSD 14 that employees are using don't have any release notes, so we don't know exactly what has changed yet, and those release notes are probably being saved for a wider, more public release. There is no actually smart summon available in FSD version 14, which sounds kind of weird, but to me is amazing news. Actually, smart summon is cool. We use it sometimes in the rain and stuff, don't get me wrong, but for the most part, it's not that useful because it is so slow with a top speed of about 5 or 6 miles per hour. That's probably good for safety, but pay attention next time you're driving in a parking lot, even busier parking lots with lots of cars driving around. A more normal speed is 10 to 15 miles an hour. And if Summon could, number one, get up to 15 miles an hour, and number two, have a much wider range of ability where you don't have to be anywhere near the car to use it, it would be an amazing feature that I think a lot more people would use, and it would have a lot more practicality. It does seem that version 14 is much more reliably finding parking on its own though, and it seems as of right now this version is Model Y only on hardware 4, which makes sense. Makes me so glad that I have my new Model Y instead of the Cybertruck now, although Cybertruck is expected to receive many big updates with FSD version 14, bringing it up to parity with other vehicles. We'll see if that's true, but that's at least the plan for now. And hopefully hardware 3 vehicles are going to get some love too. It's unknown for now, but I don't think Tesla's totally going to leave them in the dust. I think they will receive some type of update to improve capabilities, but if version 14 is going to allow Tesla to take these safety drivers out of robotaxis and will have actually fully autonomous vehicles driving around, which of course is the goal, then Tesla is really going to be at that point that they said a couple of earnings calls ago when they were asked, what are you doing with hardware 3? What's going on, you know, with our retrofits, our updates to get us up to speed with hardware 4? Tesla's response was basically, look, we are going to solve autonomy for hardware 4, then we're going to move back and go to hardware 3 and fix what we need to fix. There's no point in us updating hardware 3 to then be like, we actually can't do autonomy with all these changes we made to hardware 3. Now we got to go back and update it again. I'm not saying that's the best answer. I'm not saying it's the most fair, but it is what Tesla said a couple of earnings calls ago. Now, once we finally get FSD version 14, what are some of the improvements we can expect? There is supposed to be a 10 times improvement in parameters, which basically means the car will be ready for more edge cases, more weird, different situations. And if you've been using FSD version 13, you know it works really well. Most of my drives outside of personal preference things like speed or turns or navigation or routing, the car can just do like every drive for the most part. It's pretty crazy. But this 10x parameter increase will allow the car to handle more edge cases. And so with that one bullet point, it is a huge one. It is what we need to have a million cars out on the road all driving themselves without any assistance or supervision. But on the daily for individuals, we're not going to notice much of a difference because we're not encountering edge cases that often. That's why they're edge cases. That's why they're difficult for autonomy, because you don't see them all that often. But on the overall scale that Tesla is operating, what they're looking at, it is going to be a massive improvement in safety and capability. There are supposed to be improvements in video compression loss, another thing we're not really going to notice on our end, but overall will make the vehicles perform better. I think especially in unideal scenarios like rain or at night and things like that. We're also hoping for a reduction in the nags, where the vehicle is asking us to pay attention to the road, looking over at the screen, or having to hold the wheel. We need these for now. They're a safety precaution, even though the cars are super safe. People need to still be paying attention legally, and just, that's the way the cars are operating today. They're not quite good enough for us to be looking away for too much. But as of now, I think most people agree the nags are a little crazy. You go to change a song on the screen or edit your navigation or do anything for like 2 seconds and the car starts beeping at you and yelling at you. It's pretty frustrating. I'm a little conflicted on this one because we do have to be paying attention to the road, so it should be nagging us. And I find that if I am sitting there just kind of hanging out in the car looking forward, I don't get nagged. It's really not a problem. It's when I do start to mess with the center screen or try to do something with my phone for just a second, or I'm at a red light and I look at my phone and don't notice it turns green, I'm getting nagged. And I'm kind of like, well, it's kind of working the way it's supposed to. It's telling me, hey, pay attention, and I'm not. But at the same time, the car's doing a good job. It's driving itself. Don't kind of make me mess with you when I also need to be doing whatever I'm doing over here. So it's kind of a weird point, but if the cars do improve dramatically, then these nags can be reduced. This will also help people who don't really see the point of FSD or don't really want to use it. I think if you tell them like, hey, you can use this, again, if this is what Tesla says and it's legal and everything, you can use this and you can look away for, 10, 20 seconds at a time to edit something on your screen or do what you got to do. People are gonna be like, whoa, wait, I can do that? And the car's going to handle everything and be safe? Maybe I am interested in this. Another thing we are expecting is big updates for the Cybertruck. Of course, I don't have mine anymore, and that was one of the big reasons I got rid of it, is because FSD sucked so much on it compared to the Model 3 and the Model Y. I actually did a test drive of the Model 3 while I still had my Cybertruck, and I made a whole video about how I forgot how good FSD was, because Cybertruck just got so frustrating with going over the lane lines. It can't, like the most basic thing, it can't even stay in its lane. The turning is super slow. A lot of things. I have it all recorded in older videos. FSD 14 is supposed to fix a lot of these things. It's supposed to bring Smart Summon. It's supposed to bring like FSD from park. I mean, the simplest thing of pushing the button on the screen and letting the car take itself out of park and start driving with FSD. Cybertruck doesn't have that. It's very strange that such an expensive vehicle is missing these features that, a base Model 3 has, but at the same time, Cybertruck just doesn't have the miles, and so a lot of people speculate that's why it's missing these features. And another big one, FSD version 14, according to Elon, is expected to be 2 to 3 times safer than a human, which is huge. If humans are getting in accidents every, 500,000 miles, that means FSD is going to get in an accident without supervision. Okay, this is without supervision every 1.5 million miles. So you have a third the amount of accidents. That alone is huge. The problem is every single accident on FSD is going to be attributed to Tesla. Now, as of now, legally, Tesla, as far as we know, is not taking liability or anything. So like technically, legally, you or I will be responsible for the vehicle. But on like a practical sense, FSD would be responsible for those 1.5 or those accidents every 1.5 million miles. Yes, the total amount of accidents is coming down. People will be safer. There will be less injuries. There will be less property damage. But the problem is now everything is attributable to one source. Whereas if I mess up, I get in trouble for it. If you mess up, you get in trouble for it. You get what I'm saying. So my kind of thought this whole time is we need like 10, not even, we need like 50 times, 100 times safer than a human to get that real unsupervised FSD, Tesla takes liability. The car's driving around out there with nobody in it, because if you have a million cars driving, that's a lot of miles every single day. You're going to have accidents and mistakes if it's only 2 to 3 times safer than a human. Now, before we continue, we have to give a huge shout out to today's sponsor, Delete Me. If you don't know, Delete Me goes out and scrubs your personal information from sketchy online entities known as data brokers. These data brokers collect and sell your personal information like your name, address, phone number, even details about your family. And this can unfortunately lead to identity theft, phishing, and other scams. I have been using Delete Me for 2 years now, and when I first signed up, I was surprised at how many different websites had my data. Delete Me sent over a full report showing where my info was exposed, and then they just handled it. They request removals, keep monitoring, and every few months I get an update showing all the websites from which they removed my personal information. Here's the other problem with data brokers. It's not just a one-time cleanup. These sites keep popping up, but Delete Me will keep working to remove your personal information. For me, it's been peace of mind knowing that my personal data isn't just floating around out on the internet. So if you care about your privacy even just a little bit, use my link down below, save 20% on Delete Me right now. Thank you to Delete Me for sponsoring this video. Now, we were just talking about liability and the cars, being responsible and things like that. A couple of things have been added to FSD, kind of, with the recent software updates while we wait for version 14. And I was very surprised Tesla added these couple of messages. Number one, lane departure. Lane drift detected. Let FSD assist you so you can stay focused. This is in vehicles right now, where if the car detects you drifting out of the lane, it's going to suggest you use FSD to kind of keep you safer. And it's kind of crazy because, yeah, Tesla's not actually taking liability. It's not like you turn this on and then the car still crashes. They're going to, be responsible or anything. But the fact is, FSD is safer than a drunk driver. It's safer than most people who are sober. It's safer than somebody falling asleep at the wheel. It's safer than somebody texting and driving. This is something I don't think anyone's really going to dispute with. Again, the problem comes down to if the car does make a mistake, it's, still a problem, but you have less chance of a mistake or an accident happening if you use FSD compared to any of these impaired drivers. And so Tesla's they're not taking liability, but they're like moving in that direction, which to me is huge news, even though this might seem a little small, where they're saying, yo, you're messing up. FSD is better than you. Just turn it on. That's basically what they're saying with this. And then there's another one for drowsiness. Drowsiness detected. Stay focused with FSD. So this one's not quite as direct, in my opinion. They're like, hey, you need to stay focused, but have FSD help you because you seem like you're a little tired. And again, I totally agree. If you're in any vehicle, think about it. If somebody is texting and driving, it's illegal. They're not supposed to be doing that. They can get huge fines or potentially jail time for doing this. If they're doing it, would you rather have them in a car with driver assist doing that or in a car with no driver assist doing that? I think the answer is pretty obvious. And it's no excuse. It doesn't mean right now I can go in my Tesla and text and drive, and if something bad happens, I'm like, well, Tesla said they were responsible. But the fact is, if I had two choices and one of them was a texting and driving person in a Tesla with FSD versus a texting and driving person in any other car that's not a Tesla, I want them in the Tesla 10 out of 10 times. So these new messages seem small, but to me, I think they're kind of a big deal. Now, all of this kind of goes into some other news that is kind of crazy. Elon bought $1 billion worth of Tesla stock on Friday, September 12th. And that is a huge buy. The last time he bought, I don't know the exact numbers, but I think he only bought like $10 million worth of stock or something, which obviously is a lot of money to any individual. But in the stock market, it's like, oh yeah, that's, it's good news. Your CEO is buying and Elon buying shows confidence in the company or whatever. But he hasn't bought for a long time. And $1 billion, that number one gives him a lot more voting power. Number two, of course, it takes shares off the market and everything. But it's the first time he's bought in a long time. He did a lot of sales a few years ago and he was buying Twitter and the stock was getting crushed. And, people were like, hey, you said you were the first in and the last out with your money. So it wasn't a good time in Tesla stock. But seeing the stock rally on this news, seeing Elon buy the stock is huge news. It means number one, I think the voting is one of the main things. But number two, he's been talking about how Tesla basically needs to bet the company on autonomy. The same way Tesla bet the company on the Tesla Model 3, it needed to be ramped up, it needed to be produced. And if they failed to do that, Tesla was going to go bankrupt. Elon has said very similar things now about full self-driving and autonomy. And the fact that he wants to put $1 billion in there when he's responsible for X, Twitter, he's responsible for SpaceX, he's responsible for the Boring Company, he's responsible for Neuralink. He can't be going going bankrupt on Tesla and having all his other companies die because of it. So it does show a huge amount of confidence in Tesla stock, and maybe points to the fact that FSD version 14 is really, really good. And Elon is confident that Tesla has autonomy down, and they're going to reach that goal. Remember, they have that goal of covering 50% of the country with robotaxi service. Maybe it looks like that's going to happen within just the next few months. Now, along with all this FSD news, Tesla actually filed a patent release to FSD that has some new information in it. In my old job, I had a few patents I had to go through. They're awful. They are so dry. It's just a bunch of crazy legalese. It's not fun. So not gonna lie, I used AI to help me kind of summarize some of this and pull out some of the main points. I will link it down below if you want to go more into it, because it is interesting, but it was a lot. It was pretty heavy. So the patent is related to enabling LiDAR quality 3D sensing just from camera data alone. Now, we've seen Tesla talk about this a lot over the years. They are confident that you don't need LiDAR, you only need cameras. You can get the same information, you can map the environment around you with cameras, which is, of course, kind of how humans do it. They have a neural net brain, they have eye cameras, and that's all they need. And they can have spatial awareness, they can drive around, they can perceive depth. Even with a single eye, you can kind of guess the depth and distance of different things. Tesla's confident you can do this with cameras as well. It talks about delivering surgical level precision using 90% less processing power than current systems. And one of the big things from this patent is that it is tied to Tesla's robotaxi service, which launched back in June of 2025. So not only is Tesla pushing forward on their development of autonomy with cameras and a neural net, they are patenting this information and technology to protect it and actually roll it out in the real world. Now, another kind of interesting piece of news, an analyst, Adam Jonas, drove 1,400 miles from New York to Michigan and talked about how 99% of the miles were on FSD. He said he didn't do anything besides 2 torrential downpours he had to help out, I guess, and moving around certain parking lots is when he had to use the car. And he was just surprised. He talked about how not having to use the steering wheel and pedals for 99% of the drive was a game changer and really a huge relief. And this is something that if you're watching this, you probably already know. Your car probably already does most of your driving. I talked about this back in early 2024 when we were doing a road trip in our Cybertruck. And it was like, we're driving all the way from Michigan to Florida, and I barely touch the steering wheel and pedals. I use them in parking lots and basically to start the drive, and that's it. Like, you just don't need to use them. I think I said pretty much the same thing where I'm driving across the country, but 99% of the time I'm not using the steering wheel and pedals. How weird is that? You never would have thought of that in the past, but it's a fact of today. Now, these analysts, I always make fun of them for being useless. Like, a stock goes up 20% and then they'll put out all their predictions. They're like, yes, this stock is rising and our price target is way up here now. And then once the stock turns around and starts dropping, then they're like, yes, we are revising our targets and the stock is going down to this level. It's like, guys, all you do is react to stock movements. But anyway, the most surprising part of his analysis and him talking about this, again, we probably already know if you're driving a Tesla, you're like, yeah, duh, it does that. He was on hardware 3. He was using FSD 12.6.4 with hardware 3. He wasn't even on hardware 4. He wasn't even on version 13. And he had these thoughts. He had these thoughts of being super impressed, not having to use the car. So imagine this dude using an actual hardware 4 Model Y, which in my experience is the best FSD experience you can have today. And then imagine once version 14 comes out and gets a couple of polishing updates, because Tesla usually rolls out the new update and then they update it a bunch of times kind of quickly until they get it to where they want it. Imagine once that's out, what this guy's going to think. I don't care that much about what this guy thinks. I think analysts are kind of useless, and there's way better information from people like here on YouTube that share their own personal experiences. You can learn so much more. Again, this information he shared is not new. People have been saying the same thing for 2 or 3 years now, but because he's an analyst, everyone wants to talk about it. And I wanted to share it mostly because of the fact he was on hardware 3 and was super impressed by this. So cool to hear. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is hardware 5 updates. And this is kind of a weird area right now. I've talked about hardware 5 in the past. There were a lot of indications that hardware 5 was coming by the end of the year. And when I had my Cybertruck, I actually said, I'm not upgrading again until hardware 5 comes out because I want to wait for that. And obviously I was wrong. I didn't do that. I ended up with a hardware 4 refresh Model Y, mostly because I experienced the FSD in the refresh Model Y and I was like, I can't wait. It's so much better than Cybertruck and it's lower cost. I mean, there are a million reasons I shared in other videos. I'm now on a hardware 4 Model Y. And the fact that Tesla robotaxis are currently hardware 4 2026 Model Ys give me a little more confidence in that decision as well. But hardware 5 is coming eventually, of course, and hardware 6. Elon's even talked about hardware 6 and hardware 7, and hardware 10 will be out eventually. But it's kind of a weird point because we're like almost at actual full self-driving where you don't have to pay attention. You can sleep and the car will drive you around, but we're not quite there. But the cars are like so freaking good. It's kind of like, do I really need, this update or not? So it's good to pay attention. Things are really weird right now with the tax credit and everything. So I know some people are like, oh, should I buy a Tesla now or wait? It's an impossible decision to make. You have to just use the information you have today, decide what you want to do. But let's talk about some of the things with hardware 5. I do have another video going over some hardware 5 stuff that includes more information. If you want to watch that, I'll link it up above. But some of the more recent updates we have, Elon Musk was on the All In podcast and shared some stuff about hardware 5. He said in certain metrics, hardware 5 or AI 5 will have a 40 times improvement over AI 4. And this is in certain metrics. It's not overall. It doesn't mean it's going to be 40 times better at self-driving or anything. But when they look at specific things, ways they've improved the chip, certain things are 40 times better, which is obviously a massive improvement. It's going to have 8 times the raw compute, 9 times the memory, up to 144 gigabytes from 16 gigabytes, 5 times the memory bandwidth. And it also specifically addresses AI4 bottlenecks. The hardware and software teams have been working together to design this chip. And I've seen a lot of talk over on X from people who work in these fields, not at Tesla, but at different companies with hardware and software. And they said one of the biggest things they're missing in their companies when they do this stuff is the hardware and the software people don't talk. And that leaves them lacking and wanting more when they design their chips or with whatever chips they're working with when they're developing the software. And we know this is what Tesla excels at. Elon has always said from years and years ago, everyone at Tesla needs to talk. There's no hierarchy there for the most part. All the different teams work together to develop the cars so that not only does everything fit and work well together, it's easy to produce, or it's scalable, I should say, and they get the best efficiency out of their manufacturing. And Elon Musk's AGI timeline, things just keep accelerating. He's saying that AGI is going to be smarter than any human by next year and smarter than all humans combined by 2030, which is a scary thing to think about, but good in terms of self-driving. If we stick to the topic we're talking about, we want it to be that way. We want it to be faster and smarter and better in all ways to keep us safe when it's driving us around. Production for AI5 is going to start in 2026. It was supposed to start by the end of 2025 and really ramp up in 2026. So things have been pushed back a little bit. AI6 will power all Tesla vehicles and the Optimus robot. I'm so excited for Optimus. I hope to start doing more Optimus videos on this channel. There's not a whole lot of developments happening all the time, but as they happen, I'll probably start posting videos about that. So look forward to that, because as we move on, as FSD has gotten better and better, my interest, my focus, my excitement has more turned towards Optimus. I am so excited for Optimus. So hopefully we'll be learning more about that as time goes on. There was also just some new information revealed, or maybe leaked. I think Samsung put it out, but maybe they weren't supposed to. I'm not sure. About the AI5 chip and the fact that they will be using HBM high bandwidth memory. Now, I saw some people online comparing this to the fact that NVIDIA's A100 AI chips are also using the same type of memory. But Elon did respond to this, and the person ended up deleting the post. I unfortunately didn't take a screenshot of it before they deleted it. Usually I've already taken the screenshots by the time I film the videos. Of course, this time it gets deleted, and I didn't do that. But Elon did say that the decision for HBM has not been made yet, and AI5 is being made by TSMC, not Samsung, but Samsung is in contract with Tesla to make AI6 whenever that comes out. And Elon will actually be walking the production floors at Samsung making AI6. So I don't know if Samsung knows what they signed up for, but overall, it will definitely be a good thing for both Samsung and Tesla.